After my divorce from Albert was finalized, I began a new chapter of my life by moving in with my daughter, Diana. About 8 months into this transition, an unexpected event occurred on one of my days off. I was enjoying some downtime at home with Diana when I received an unsettling phone call from my mother. She informed me that Albert and his mother had unexpectedly shown up at my parents' home without an invitation. Alarmed and curious, I quickly dressed and hurried over to my parents' house. Upon my arrival, I was surprised to find Albert and his mother seated on the living room sofa, apparently waiting for me. Confused about their presence, I asked, "Why are you here at my parents' house?" Albert's response caught me off guard as he demanded, "I want you to return the money you owe me. Let me introduce myself. I'm Judy, a 38-year-old office worker. I was married to Albert for 10 years, and we have a daughter, Diana, who is now in the 8th grade. We met on a blind date and instantly connected due to his warm, friendly, and cheerful demeanor. Our relationship progressed from high school sweethearts to life partners, and he proposed after we dated for a year. Our wedding was a joyous occasion, attended by my close-knit group of high school friends. We were all deeply intertwined in each other's lives, celebrating major milestones together. Over time, each friend from this cherished circle found their partner and got married, creating a tightly bound community of married couples. We were a happy family, and I always believed our home would be a sanctuary of love and support. As we matured, our close-knit group of friends transitioned from carefree singles to married adults, and soon after I announced my pregnancy, it seemed my friends followed suit. Before long, we had evolved into a circle of mothers, sharing in the joys and challenges of parenthood together. It felt as though we were navigating the waves of life side by side, and I was confident that our bond would last a lifetime. I cherished my dual roles as both a wife and a mother, and I was equally passionate about my career. After graduating from college, I secured a position in the planning and development department of a large corporation. My days were packed and the work was demanding yet fulfilling. Each day brought new lessons and challenges. One of my friends, a stay-at-home mom, once playfully teased me saying, "You're a workaholic, Judy, but you also manage to maintain a wonderful family life. It's almost as if you're living 2 lives." She admired my strength, though I often joked that I wished I had the boundless energy typical of a robust man. Both Albert and Diana played pivotal roles in helping me decompress after long days at the office. When I arrived home, I was greeted by Diana's bright, "Oh, Mommy, welcome home." Her youthful enthusiasm and warm hugs melted away the day's fatigue. Albert had transitioned to part-time work at a local cafe after Diana was born, allowing him to take on the primary responsibilities of picking her up from school and preparing dinner. This arrangement not only supported my career, but also ensured that I returned home to a freshly cooked meal, which was a tremendous relief. Albert's thoughtful cooking allowed me to unwind and feel rejuvenated. Evenings at home were a cherished ritual. Diana and I would often take baths together, chatting about our days and sharing little stories. This simple, everyday interaction was a source of immense joy and fulfillment. My life was a beautiful balance of professional achievements and home life bliss, all made possible by the unwavering support and kindness of Albert and Diana. Their support not only bolstered my energy, but also deepened my dedication and passion for my work. Together, we had crafted a life that was as rewarding as it was busy, proving that with the right support, one could indeed have it all. As my career progressed and I began to achieve significant results, I was rewarded with a promotion. With this new position came increased responsibilities, leading me to work more overtime and often arrive home quite late. By this time, Diana had grown older and had a better grasp of the demands of my job, which allowed her to manage more on her own. Meanwhile, Albert also increased his hours at the cafe, further immersing himself in the world of coffee. Lately, I have taken to exploring various coffee shops, indulging in their unique coffee beans, and even today I have brought home some beans along with cakes from a new bakery I discovered. I suggested we enjoy them together with coffee, excited to share this with Albert, who had become quite passionate about roasting and experimenting with different types of beans at his job. This made the coffee he brewed at home exceptionally good. Albert and Diana were both very supportive of my dedication to my career, but despite their understanding, I started to notice a gradual distancing within our family. The first sign that something was amiss came when Diana approached me with a concern. "What's up? You wanted to talk about something?" I asked her. "The other day when I went to see a movie with friends, I saw Dad with another woman," she revealed, her voice tinged with uncertainty. I was taken aback, shocked by her words. Diana continued, "They weren't holding hands or anything, but they seemed quite close. Lately, I've noticed Dad talking a lot on the phone before you get home. Sometimes he's so engrossed that he doesn't listen to me. He looks happy while he's on the phone. At first, I thought he was texting or talking to you, but after seeing him with that woman, I'm starting to wonder if he was talking to her instead." As she spoke, Diana's expression was filled with sadness. Being in middle school, she was acutely aware and sensitive to such matters, and it was clear she felt troubled by this observation. I was equally stunned. The thought that Albert, who I believed always prioritized Diana, might be involved with someone else was heartbreaking. This revelation required a careful and sensitive approach, as our family's unity was at stake. "I'm so sorry, sweetie. I didn't realize we were making you feel this way. I've been too focused on work, haven't I?" I said, feeling a twinge of guilt as I looked at Diana. "No, it's okay that you work hard, Mom. Don't feel bad about that," Diana reassured me, her maturity at that moment beyond her years. I was touched by her understanding and compassion. "Thank you, Diana," I replied, my heart heavy. "I'll talk to your dad about this. If it turns out he's having an affair, I think I'll have to consider a divorce. Is that okay with you?" She nodded solemnly. "I don't like the idea of Dad having an affair. Just knowing that and still being with him would make me feel bad." Seeing Diana so distressed made me realize just how much I had overlooked our family's needs. Determined to address this head-on, especially since Diana had bravely brought it up, I decided to hire a private investigator to delve into Albert's activities. The findings were as shocking as they were conclusive. Albert was indeed having an affair, just as Diana suspected, and there was photographic evidence to prove it. What stunned me most was the identity of his affair partner, Tiffany, one of my high school classmates and a fellow member of our mom's group. I was more hurt by this betrayal from a trusted friend than by Albert's infidelity. Tiffany, a stay-at-home mom and supposedly a loyal friend in our group, had her young child, yet she was involved with Albert, neglecting her family commitments. Upon seeing the evidence, I was overwhelmed with emotion. Alone in my room, I was grateful that Diana hadn't walked in on me during this moment. The photos would have only added to her distress. I wasn't ready to confront Albert yet, nor could I let Diana see these disturbing images. I took a few deep breaths to compose myself. Shortly after, another friend from the mom's group mentioned she had changed jobs, which sparked an idea. I suggested a get-together, seeing it as a perfect opportunity to observe Tiffany without revealing that I knew about the affair. The gathering was set for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, I quietly contacted a lawyer and began preparing for a potential divorce, fortifying myself for the challenges ahead. I took a moment to gently inform Diana about what I had uncovered and the inevitable decision that her dad and I would be getting a divorce. Together, we spent our free time searching for a new apartment, trying to find a space that would signify a fresh start for us both. As the day of the planned get-together approached, I felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. When the day finally arrived, I engaged in casual conversation with my friends, starting with asking about one friend's new job before we all shared updates on our lives. Tiffany seemed oblivious to the fact that I knew her secret. During the conversation, she lamented her routine life, saying, "I'm just a housewife stuck in the same routine, unlike all of you who have careers. You don't have to work because your husband supports you," another friend pointed out. "I do appreciate my husband," Tiffany replied, "but sometimes I feel a little bored." It was then that I decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. "So, is that why you're having an affair with other people's husbands?" I asked, turning directly to Tiffany. The room fell silent and the casual ambiance quickly shifted to tension. "Ah, Judy, what do you mean by that?" Tiffany stammered, her face draining of color. "It seems that Tiffany is having an affair with my husband, Albert," I declared plainly. "What? No way. You must be joking," another friend interjected, trying to defend Tiffany. Taking advantage of the disbelief, Tiffany tried to deflect. "That's right, Judy. What are you talking about all of a sudden? You must have confused me with someone else." "Oh, really?" I countered, my voice steady. "Then why don't you all take a look at this?" I reached into my bag, pulled out the photos, and spread them out on the table for everyone to see. The room erupted into gasps of disbelief. "Oh my gosh," they gasped, turning to Tiffany for explanations. Tiffany, clearly caught off guard and unable to deny the evidence before her, covered her mouth with her hand. "I'm sorry," she began, her voice trembling. "I happened to walk into the cafe where your husband works. I didn't know he worked there initially, but then I started going there regularly. My husband provides for me, but he's been neglecting me since we got married. I was feeling lonely," Tiffany continued, tears starting to form in her eyes. Despite her emotional response and her attempts to justify her actions, the betrayal cut deep. An affair, particularly with a friend's husband, was a breach of trust that was hard to overlook. Her reasons, while they might explain her actions, didn't excuse them. The revelation was painful but necessary, as it confirmed the reality I had begun to suspect and reshaped the dynamics of our friendship and personal lives. Throughout the confrontation, I maintained my composure, unaffected by Tiffany's tears. "I'm sorry to everyone else here, but Tiffany, I need to let you know that I will be seeking alimony from you," I announced firmly. I had also taken a formal step earlier that day. "I sent a certified letter to your mailbox today. Your husband should have already seen it." Tiffany's face fell as she absorbed the weight of the situation. "Oh no," she murmured, a mix of worry and disbelief in her voice. "How could he do something so terrible?" she asked, still reeling from the shock. "It's far worse to have an affair with a friend's husband, especially when you're married. And are you making our affair public? How could you be so terrible? You acted like a good husband, but you were cheating on me. And no, it's not just about exposing Tiffany. How could you do that to her family?" I retorted. "It's ridiculous." I continued, my tone firm. "It seems people who have affairs think alike. You believe that as long as the other person doesn't find out, it's not a big deal. But what you did was wrong, and it all needs to be revealed as part of your punishment. That's why I'm going to divorce you and seek alimony and child support." Faced with clear evidence of the affair, Albert could not deny the truth. He agreed to the divorce, though he was initially hesitant about the financial implications. Once I hired a strong lawyer and made it clear I was prepared to take the case to court, if necessary, he finally consented to the financial arrangements. Following the divorce, Albert sold the house we had lived in and moved to a new apartment. I pursued and received alimony from both Albert and Tiffany, totaling $50,000 from each. Additionally, I secured child support from Albert. Once everything was settled, Diana and I began our new life together, though the ordeal was deeply traumatic for me. The experience, while painful, marked the start of a new chapter where we could seek peace and rebuild our lives. Over time, the emotional wounds from my divorce began to heal. However, about 8 months later, I faced a new challenge while I was enjoying a relaxed day at home with Diana. My peace was disrupted by an urgent call from my mother, who informed me that my ex-husband Albert and his mother had unexpectedly shown up at my parents' house and had forced their way inside without permission. My father was not home at the time, so my concerned mother quickly rang me up. I hurriedly prepared myself and went over to my parents' house. Upon arriving, I found Albert and his mother sitting nonchalantly on the living room sofa as if they belonged there. Confused and a bit alarmed, I asked, "What are you both doing here at my parents' house all of a sudden?" Albert's response was shocking. He demanded, "I want you to give me back the money you owe me." "Huh? I never borrowed any money from you," I replied, perplexed. He retorted, "I paid $25,000 for our wedding, remember? You were in charge of the wedding, so that money was lent to you. Now that we're divorced, you're claiming it was all a fraud. Honestly, I could sue you for marriage fraud, but for now, all I want is that $25,000 back as a settlement." This unreasonable request took me aback. His mother also chimed in, insisting that I pay him as soon as possible. It became clear that Albert was struggling financially, which might have been driving his irrational demands. He had taken a full-time job at the cafe where he used to work part-time, but the pay was modest. Firmly, I reminded him, we both were equally involved in the wedding, and I paid more of our living expenses than you did. The $25,000 is just a small part of what I contributed. Don't bother me with such unreasonable demands. As the tension escalated, they refused to leave. Just then, my father arrived, having been alerted by my mother. "What are you guys doing here?" he demanded sternly. Albert repeated his claims to my father, who, although usually calm, was visibly furious and shocked by Albert's audacious demands. "It's your fault for having an affair in the first place. If you're going to make such outrageous demands, get out of here," my father asserted, trying to expel them from the house. In a desperate turn, Albert fell to his knees and begged, "Please, Judy, lend me money. Not only are you demanding alimony, but Tiffany's husband is also after me, and I can't afford it. Even $16,000 would help." It was disheartening to see him in such a state, begging for money. However, I responded firmly, "No, I can't do that. Go home." The situation highlighted the deep desperation Albert was experiencing, but it also reaffirmed my resolve to maintain boundaries and protect my family's peace. As the situation with my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law escalated, my father intervened, suggesting he'd handle it. "Fine, I'll get the money. Just wait here," he said calmly, and walked to another room. Curious, I followed him. With a mischievous grin, he said, "Well, I have plenty of money. Since we have it, why not give it to them?" He opened the closet and pulled out some cash, creating a sense of suspense. "I wonder how this will play out," I mused silently. My father then put the bills into an envelope and handed it to Albert. With faces lit up with satisfaction, my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law left with the envelope, thinking their plan had worked. As soon as they stepped out, I locked the door behind them and made a quick call to the police. It didn't take long for Albert and his mother to realize the money was fake. They rushed back, pounding on our door in anger. "Hey, what's going on? This is Monopoly money. I don't want this fake cash," Albert shouted, his voice thick with fury. I couldn't help but laugh as I responded through the door. "Since we have so much of it, I thought I'd share it with you." Albert's frustration peaked, and he began banging even harder, now kicking the door with his feet. Their actions only escalated the situation further. As Albert and his mother wreaked havoc on our door, the police arrived and caught them in the act. The scene drew the attention of the neighbors, many of whom witnessed their arrest. In the end, not only did Albert not get any money, but he was also fined for the disturbance and had to cover the damage to our front door. Ironically, one of the bystanders was a regular at the cafe where Albert worked, and word of his antics spread quickly. As a result, Albert lost his job and found himself struggling to find new work. He had to move back in with his parents, and his in-laws ended up covering his alimony and child support payments. To To safeguard my family further, I filed a restraining order against my former in-laws, ensuring that any future incidents would lead to an immediate police response. Now, life is more peaceful and fulfilling. I'm devoted to working hard and relishing the time watching my daughter Diana grow up.
Kathy, you need to buy the ingredients and cook dinner for 30 people, then clean the house. Once you're done, you can rest. If my husband asks for help, do whatever he requests. My mother-in-law looked so proud when she was giving me orders, but I had no reason to obey her anymore. It's impossible. I can't do it all by myself, I protested. Don't tell me you can't. Just get on with it, my mother-in-law snapped. No, I won't do it. I'm not going to be treated like that, I replied firmly. My mother-in-law's eyes got wider as she gave me an angry look. Don't you dare talk back to me. Just do as I say. Her face turned red and she looked furious. Okay, I'll quit being a wife then, I calmly told her. Huh? What? She exclaimed in exasperation. My name is Kathy, a 28-year-old housewife. I married my husband, Elliot, 2 years ago. When we got married, I became a full-time housewife. We were happily married and spending our days together. But recently, we have been experiencing some tension. My mother-in-law, with whom I had a good relationship, suddenly changed her attitude. She used to be very kind to me, but now, as if she is a different person, she has become mean to me. It seems like she has suddenly changed. When I used to visit my in-laws, she used to say, "Welcome, Kathy. Take a good rest here." But lately, she would say things like, "You're late. Now help me with the housework." She used to insist that I should wait for a baby to come naturally. But now she would ask me, "Will I get to see my grandchildren? Aren't you the one who has a problem?" I was confused by the sudden change in my mother-in-law's attitude, and my mother-in-law began to take advantage of me. She abuses me and makes me do all the things for her. "Kathy, I want you to come over here right now," she would command on the phone. "But I just saw my husband off to work," I'd try to reason. "Then it's perfect. I wouldn't call you before Elliot leaves for work. It's a wife's duty to make sure her husband goes to work without any stress. And once you see him off, it's your duty to work for your mother-in-law," she'd insist. "Oh no," I would mutter under my breath, frustrated. "If you understand that, come here as soon as you can," she would say before hanging up. My mother-in-law calls me like this every morning. If I tried to ignore her, she would call me again and again until I came to her house. I have to go there because it drives me crazy. And if I go there, she would bully me non-stop. They make me work like a slave. I found myself having to go there on the weekends too. I was forced to do housework at my parents-in-law's house 7 days a week. "Come and visit us over the weekend," she would write to my husband and invite us over. Then she'd put pressure on me secretly, so I would do the housework. Since she doesn't talk to me like in front of my husband is unaware that I am being treated this way. And my father-in-law travels a lot and is often not home even on weekends. Therefore, my mother-in-law is on her own at the house. My parents-in-law's family consists of my parents-in-law and their 3 sons. My husband is the second son, and his brothers are also married. My older brother-in-law and his wife previously lived with my parents-in-law. They moved out of the home when they were transferred to a different region for work. By the way, my mother-in-law was, and still is, very kind to my younger brother-in-law's wife. On some weekends, my brother-in-law and his wife also come to visit. My mother-in-law shows my younger brother-in-law's wife the same kind expressions and words that she used to have towards me before. Why on earth did she start harassing me like this? Did I do something wrong to offend my mother-in-law? What's the difference between me and my younger brother-in-law's wife? I became more and more frustrated and couldn't take it anymore, so I talked to my husband about it. "Hey, your mother has been quite mean to me lately," I told Elliot. But my husband's reaction was cold. "What? You got a problem with her? Give me a break. I don't want any problems." He dismissed me. But I tried to continue. "Basically, those things happen because you expect too much from the other person. You and my mother are strangers, so you shouldn't expect anything from her," he added. His comments seemed quite off. It also just seemed that he wanted to get away without even trying to understand it, and I felt disappointed. After his words, I decided that there was no point in expecting support from my husband because he had become a stranger too. Then it was time for New Year's. As usual, a large number of relatives were gathering at my parents-in-law's house. My mother-in-law had been persistent in trying to talk me into coming over. "You should come, it's New Year's, family matters," she would nag. But I kept refusing, saying that I was busy with family matters during the New Year's holiday. I had been pretty obedient to my mother-in-law until then, but suddenly I was not listening to her anymore. So she became increasingly frustrated. On the day of the family gathering, my mother-in-law had prepared a terrible punishment for me. This was the third time I've attended the event at my in-laws' house. The first time was shortly after I married my husband, so I was helping my older brother-in-law's wife. Last year, I was cleaning my parents-in-law's house and buying groceries. But this year, my mother-in-law asked me to do all the preparations for the family gathering. "I need you to buy the ingredients for dinner for 30 people, cook, and then clean the house. Once you're done, you can rest, Kathy. If my husband asks you to do something, you can help him," she admonished me. My mother-in-law looked so proud when she said that, but I had no reason to obey her anymore. "It's impossible. I can't do it all by myself," I protested again. "Don't tell me you can't. Just get on with it," she barked back. "No, I won't do it. I'm not going to be treated like that." I stood my ground. My mother-in-law's eyes grew wider as she gave me an angry look. "Don't you dare talk back to me. Just do as I say," she continued angrily. Her face turned red and she looked furious. I calmly told her, "Okay, I'll quit being a wife then." My mother-in-law's eyes widened and she snapped, "What are you talking about?" "I'm going to divorce Elliot and quit being his wife," I replied firmly. "You think you're allowed to do such a selfish thing? I won't allow it," she shouted. "I don't need your permission," I said, standing my ground. "Divorce is between husband and wife." "Stop being such a smartass," she yelled. "You really piss me off." I smirked and replied, "What a coincidence. I'm also annoyed by every single word you say." "What the hell?" she barked, glaring at me. Then, my younger brother-in-law's wife, who was standing next to me, chimed in. "If you quit, Kathy, I'll quit being a wife too." My mother-in-law spun around, shocked. "Huh? Oh, you're quitting too?" "Because if this continues at this rate, I'll be the next one to be bullied, right?" she explained and added, "I've got to get out of here before it's too late." I smiled, thinking, that's my sister-in-law, she's so smart. "Why do you both keep talking nonsense? I won't let you get away with it," my mother-in-law screamed in frustration. As we argued, the rest of the family started gathering around. My father-in-law and brothers-in-law, including my husband Elliot, had been at the house since early morning to help prepare for the event. They came over to see what the commotion was about. "What are you making a fuss about?" my father-in-law asked, his voice calm but curious. "Mother-in-law has been picking on me, and I can't take it anymore," I replied. "So as of today, I'm quitting my role as a wife, and I'm going to run away before I become a target of her bullying," I concluded. My father-in-law frowned and turned to my mother-in-law. "What did you say?" he asked, clearly upset. "You broke your promise," he accused. "No," my mother-in-law muttered, looking guilty. "What do you mean, a promise?" I asked, confused. My father-in-law sighed, addressing the family. "She swore she wouldn't bully her daughters-in-law again, but here we are." "Dad," my husband Elliot interjected, unsure of what was happening. "I'm sorry, Kathy," my father-in-law said to me. "The reason why my eldest son and his wife left the house wasn't because they were transferred to another region. It's because your mother-in-law was mentally torturing her. She was bullying her." I nodded, realizing the truth. "I see. So that's why they didn't come today. And why they haven't shown up to any other events at my parents-in-law's house." My father-in-law continued, "When my oldest son found out that his wife was being bullied, he got angry and left with her. I scolded your mother-in-law too. She said, 'I'm so sorry. Please give me another chance.' She promised me she would never bully her daughters-in-law again and asked me to keep quiet about it," he concluded. "Really?" I asked, surprised by the revelation. "I'm sorry for not telling you earlier," he said softly. I just didn't think she'd do it again. No, it's not your fault, Father, I reassured him. Kathy, he said, you should go home today with Elliot. I'll have her do all the preparations for this gathering by herself. My mother-in-law's eyes widened in panic. Oh no, that's impossible, she cried. Okay, my father-in-law said, his voice steely. Then you tried to force Kathy to do something impossible, didn't you? Well, my mother-in-law tried to say, but my father-in-law continued. If you'd been nicer to your daughters-in-law, none of this would have happened, he said, pointing a finger at her. It's all your fault. Turning to me, he added, I'll leave it to you to decide what to do from now on, Kathy. You can decide what you want to do. Thank you very much, I said, feeling a bit of relief. Then my husband Elliot, who had been silent for a while, finally spoke up, his voice trembling. Kathy, you're not going to tell me you're divorcing me, are you? I can't do this with you anymore, Elliot, I said, my voice firm but calm. You didn't listen to me at all when I asked you for help about your mother. Well, but, he began to stammer, we can just cut ties with my mother, so can we continue to live as a married couple? He pleaded. I shook my head, disappointed. I'm already disappointed in you. I'm sure that if anything happens in the future, you won't think about me. You'll just make decisions based on your ego. I don't want to stay married to someone like that. I want a divorce, I replied coldly. Oh no, he added quietly, realizing the gravity of the situation. After that, I went home alone, packed my things, and moved to my parents' house. My younger brother-in-law, crazy about his wife, told her he'd rather leave his parents' house than be dumped by her. They left together. My mother-in-law really had to prepare for the gathering by herself. She struggled as she cooked all the food for the large number of people who were attending. By the way, I later heard that my father-in-law confronted her with divorce papers that same day. He had been determined to divorce her if she broke her promise. He was quite smart, making her cook for the gathering, even though he had already planned to divorce her. Now that my mother-in-law is gone, my older brother-in-law and his wife can return to the house without worries. They've just had a baby, and my father-in-law is thrilled to see his grandchild. As for me, I managed to get a divorce from my husband. He was reluctant to sign the divorce papers until the very end, but as soon as I mentioned the word lawyer, he finally signed. By the way, my ex-husband was the only one among the three brothers who didn't care about his wife, which eventually caused a rift between his father and brothers. Both of his brothers respect their wives' opinions, so their wives said they didn't trust my ex-husband and didn't want to see him anymore. Now my ex-husband doesn't feel comfortable going back to his parents' house. He really deserves it. I, on the other hand, got a new job and started working hard. I'm enjoying my new job, and living alone is comfortable and fulfilling. I also recently got a younger boyfriend, so I'm trying to enjoy my love life and work as much as I can,